It's time for the Week 3 NFL predictions and picks. The best NFL prop bets, picks against the spread. It is the NFL betting show here at FTN Bets. Available on the Game Plus network and also available on our FTN Network YouTube channel. So make sure you guys click on the like button and the subscribe button. This way you guys are up to date anytime we come on with some more content. I am Benny Ricciardi, and I will be filling in for Chris Meany here today on the NFL Betting Show here at FTN Bets. And I got two experts here with me today. Do we go age before beauty? I don't know. We'll start at the bottom here with Taylor Mathis at Team Math Sports. Taylor, how are you today? What's going on?
I'm doing great. We have some exciting couple of games here in week 3. I'm excited to break down.
Yeah, we got a lot of interesting games here. And now that we actually have a couple weeks to look at, we have a little bit of data. And I am happy that we have a little bit of data because we're bringing in our man who does a lot of the data for us over at FTN Bets, FTN Fantasy, and FTN Daily. The man, the myth, the legend, and sorry, ladies, but he is off the market. The recently married and back from his honeymoon, Kyle Murray at K-Mur DFS. What is going on, my dude?
Benny, I appreciate that. Happy to be here. Happy to talk some of these awesome Week 3 games. I missed football the first 2 weeks. I'm not going to lie. So I'm ready to dive into some of this data that we've been talking about here and break down some of our favorite bets of the week. And I'm just pumped to be talking football again.
Yeah, so shout out to Kyle. You know that Kyle is in love because he agreed with his wife to have a wedding the first week of NFL season with this man and all he does for NFL. So you know it's serious. Good luck with all that. Congratulations, my guy. But now it's time for us to make some money for the people out here. And I'm going to go to you first with the first game I want to talk about here. Arizona Cardinals, Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are favored in this one by 3.5. 48.5 is the total in this game. Very interesting game. Probably some DFS stuff that we'll be talking about or that you just talked about actually on the DFS show. But what are you looking at here in this Arizona-Los Angeles Rams game?
Yeah, I really like this game from a DFS perspective. Two pretty underwhelming offenses so far. Obviously, two of the better teams in the NFL last season, with the Rams obviously being the Super Bowl defending champions. But I would say two teams that have been underwhelming offensively to start the season. I actually like the over in this game, 48.5. You can kind of find it moving around a little bit, but I'll take the over on this one, betting on the bounce back. But some of my favorite props are also from this game. Starting off with my first one, that's going to be Darrell Henderson. Over 10.5 carries here. We saw him lose some snaps and some carries to Cam Akers last week when Cam Akers had 15 carries. But Darrell Henderson still, mixed in there, still played over 50% of the snaps, still got 10 carries in his own right. He has the goal line role secured, so he's going to have that always in his back pocket there in terms of racking up some carries. So over 10.5 carries is my first favorite bet of this game and of the show. And it's, I believe, plus 100 now on DraftKings, but it was at plus 110 yesterday when I put it in the bet tracker. So as always, make sure you guys are staying up to date in that FTN bet tracker where those bets are going to be found first. But Darrell Henderson over 10.5 and the over are the two bets that I'm looking at in this game.
Yeah, and you can get over to FTN Bets and check out the prop shop as well. You just go to the prop shop, you click on it. There's a search bar up there. You put in Darrell Henderson's name. It's the easiest way to get all your line shopping done. You put in a name, it'll pop up all the books that are available in your state. It'll pop up all the different markets that are there. This way you don't have to go and click through DraftKings and FanDuel and Caesars and BetMGM and try to find where the best price is. We basically make it easy. It does all the work there for you. Kind of takes a little bit of the fun out of it, but hey, saves a lot of time for you over there. So, Taylor, what are you thinking about that game? You got any thoughts on the Arizona and Los Angeles Rams games? I mean, we've seen this Arizona team. I kind of agree with Kyle here with the over. We have seen this Arizona team get absolutely torched through the air in the first 2 weeks of the season here, especially week 1 when Kansas City put up 5 touchdowns against them. So what are you looking at here for Arizona, Los Angeles?
I live out here in Arizona, so Cardinals fans are very familiar with this matchup against the Rams. It is week 3. I think 3 is the big number you have to remember here. They faced each other 3 times last year, dating back to last season. And all of that doesn't look very good for Arizona's quarterback, Kyler Murray. In one of those games, he threw 2 picks, passer rating of 70. In their playoff game last year to end their season, he had 2 picks with a passer rating of 40. You might be thinking Kyler Murray's coming off of a great game against the Raiders. But let's remember that game was barely pulled off by a miracle, and it was mostly because of the defense. Kyler throwing a pick is actually my favorite prop from this game. I think that he'll go over here of throwing an interception. That's also at plus money, 102 right now. So I like that. This game is definitely interesting, but these teams are super familiar with each other. So it'll be a fun one to watch since they know each other's offenses and defenses inside and out.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of a money play here on this game as well, and that's going to be Cooper Kupp first touchdown plus 550. So here's the reason why I really like this. I mean, again, we talked about Arizona in game 1 against Kansas City. They gave up 5 touchdown passes to Patrick Mahomes. The first touchdown pass of the game went to Travis Kelce right there. So the first score in that game was a touchdown pass through the air. And then they played Las Vegas in week 2. And the first score in that game was a touchdown pass to Devontae Adams as well. So Cooper Kupp has 3 of the 4 passing touchdowns for this Rams team right here. He's pretty much their entire offense. The guy was an absolute stud last year in the playoffs. 4 playoff games on that run to the Super Bowl. Scored 6 touchdowns in those 4 playoff games. So this is a guy that has a nose for the end zone. I don't know, maybe him and Matthew Stafford went out to breakfast a couple times this week. Probably really excited watching that Kansas City game and seeing all the touchdowns and seeing all the different ways that guys were open and receivers were just running open everywhere for Patrick Mahomes in that game. So I'm looking for the first score in this game to be a Rams passing touchdown. And if we're going to be betting on a Rams passing touchdown, Cooper Kupp is the guy that we like. Plus 550 on FanDuel is where I got that. So I think that's a good one. Again, not somebody who not a bet that I think you should go out and mortgage the house on with a first touchdown, but at plus 550 for Cooper Kupp, I think there's a lot of value in that number there. So Taylor, I'm going to come to you for the next game we're going to talk about here, which is another interesting one, maybe completely opposite from the one we just talked about where we're expecting a lot of points. And that's going to be the Green Bay Tampa Bay game here. Tampa Bay favored by only 1 point in this game, which is actually down from what it opened at, but understandable because Mike Evans is suspended for sticking up for his quarterback. Absolutely great quote. I don't know if you guys saw that on Twitter when they did the close-up of him talking to the referee. The referee said something to him, was about to throw him out of the game, and he's like, what do you want me to do? That's Tom Brady. Like, you got to protect your quarterback right there. So great quote by Mike Evans. I think everybody in Tampa Bay will be buying him a beer for that one. There's going to be no Chris Godwin in this game as well. It does look like Julio and Russell Gage will be out there, but Julio, Russell Gage, Brashard Perryman, these might be the pass catchers that Tom Brady has to work with this week. So what are you looking at here in this Green Bay Tampa Bay game?
Yeah, this could be the last time that we see 2 legendary quarterbacks, Packers' Aaron Rodgers and Tampa's Tom Brady, face off against each other. So that's something to talk about. But I feel like really the defense is going to be taking over this game more than anything because of all the injuries that the Bucs have. This game's pretty much at a pick 'em, and I don't really want to pick a side. So I, of course, am rolling with a player prop instead that I like from a betting perspective. Tampa's running back, Leonard Fournette, over 72.5 rushing yards. Brady is going to be missing all of those receivers we talked about. Mike Evans' suspension, wideouts Chris Godwin and Julio Jones are still out. Who is Brady going to throw to? At this point, I feel like Tampa should just grab a man off of the street to come and play because they don't have many choices. I think that as long as Fournette is healthy, completely healthy in this game, you're going to see him with the ball a lot. I'm going to go Fournette over 72.5 rushing yards in this game between the Packers and Tampa.
I like that. I like that a lot right there. So, Kyle, how about you? We got the Battle of the Bays going on here. We got 2 quarterbacks and 2 teams that are probably not as good as they were last year, just between the injuries and the wide receivers that are going to be missing. I mean, last year, Rodgers was throwing to Devontae Adams. Now he's throwing to, well, Sammy Watkins isn't even going to be playing. So now he's throwing to a bunch of rookies, maybe Alan Lazard over there. And like you said, we don't even know who the wide receivers that are going to be available for Tampa Bay are here. What are you looking at in this game? Oh, is Kyle on mute there? Or is that on me?
Yeah, that was my bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, forgot to click the unmute button after I was sneezing a minute ago. Sorry about that. But yeah, if I had to take a lean here on any of the game lines here, I would probably lean the over. 42 is a pretty low number here. I know both these teams have struggled so far this season offensively, but both of these teams are still playing in the top half of neutral script pace. So I do think that this game will be faster than the average game over here on week 3. But I don't know if that's a bet that I'm necessarily willing to die on a hill for. But a bet that I do really like in this game is going to be A.J. Dillon over 13.5 receiving yards. I'm sure you've all seen it by now. The injury report for these Green Bay Packers wide receivers is lengthy. Every single wide receiver that you can see from top to bottom has some sort of nagging injury or something like that other than Romeo Doubs, who I would also monitor, see when these lines come back up. Obviously with Sammy Watkins being ruled out, Watson being questionable, Lazard still being questionable, Randall Cobb being questionable. I would like to see where the Romeo Doubs line actually comes out in terms of his receptions and receiving yards prop. But both these running backs we know are going to be heavily involved, not only via the run game, but also in the passing game. So A.J. Dillon over 13.5 receiving yards, I like quite a bit. He went over 40 in week 1. He only had about 6 or 7, I believe it was, last week. But this is a number that A.J. Dillon can go over on 1 catch. I think if he racks up 2 or 3 catches, which is more than possible here for Dillon, I like this number over 13.5.
Yeah, interesting right here. Again, the big thing for me is Tampa Bay right now is basically working on their defense, right? Like their defense is what's really carrying this team at the moment. The offense is kind of coming along. And, it reminds me a lot of what we see. And I hate to say this because, Tom Brady is the GOAT. I'm just glad he's not on the Patriots anymore as a Jet fan. So I could actually enjoy watching him play now instead of him kind of screwing me over here as a Jets fan. But, you look at remember when Peyton Manning was at the end of his career there and they won that last Super Bowl and he was playing in Denver? It really wasn't Peyton Manning that was carrying that team at that time. It was more the defense out there. Same thing if you go back even further when a guy like John Elway was towards the end of his career. We see this a lot of times. You got a guy out there. Tom Brady doesn't have to do everything on this team. He basically just has to. I don't want to call him a game manager because that's almost an insult to the GOAT, but he really only has to kind of be a little bit of a game manager here and, get them in the right plays, make sure they're checking out of bad situations and getting the ball into Leonard Fournette's hands when he can. And I think they can win a lot of football games here this year. And Green Bay, listen, there's some problems in Green Bay with the wide receivers and everything there. It'll eventually get fixed, but when you have a lot of rookies and a lot of young guys, it takes a little time for that to kind of work itself out there. So for me, I actually like the under in this game. I think 42 is a little bit too many points going up against this team because I basically think both of these teams want to try to run the football in this game. I don't think we have enough of the high-flying, explosive wide receivers that we're used to seeing in a Green Bay-Tampa Bay game. So I'm not expecting a lot of points here. I think a lot of these Tampa Bay games this year are going to come into the under. So I'm going to keep riding that trend there with Tampa Bay. So the game that I really want to talk about here, we talked about Taylor's favorite game. We talked about Kyle's favorite game. My favorite game is going to be an AFC East matchup between the 2-0 Miami Dolphins and the 2-0 Buffalo Bills. Now, this is very interesting, right? Because Buffalo came out and they absolutely beat down the Rams in week 1. They absolutely beat down the Titans in week 2. I think they basically told the league hey, everybody expected us to be really, really good, and we are really, really good. And we're going to wind up being one of the teams to beat here in the NFL this year. And then you look at this Miami team who I'm not really sure how good they are here, Kyle, because they beat New England in week 1. But, is New England anything to really get excited about them beating? It's nice for Miami to get over the hump to beat the Patriots and all that, and that's great. But, New England came back in week 2, didn't look all that great against the Pittsburgh Steelers, only put up 17 points there. So I don't really know what to make of this Miami team. And then honestly, Miami had absolutely no business being 2-0 because they were losing badly to the Baltimore Ravens in the first half of that game. But they do have 2 incredibly explosive wide receivers, which is always going to keep them around and keep them in a bunch of games here this year. What are we at right now on this one? Buffalo is -5, -5.5, depending on where you're looking there. One of the highest total games on the week with 53. So I think a lot of people are expecting a lot of points to be scored here. Anything you're looking at here in this Buffalo and Miami game?
I am also counting on a lot of points to be scored here. I don't know if I necessarily love the over because 53 is a big total, but I do like the Bills to cover here, -5. They are on the road in Miami, but I think this Buffalo team is shaping out to be one of the best teams in football. They do have some injuries on the defensive side of things. Ed Oliver is going to be out for this one, and then some injuries to monitor as well in the secondary, but this offense is so elite, so talented. I think that they're going to be more than fine. So I would lean -5 here, but in terms of a couple of props that I actually like looking at some of these running backs and their receiving lines. Obviously, I mentioned the A.J. Dillon line there, so this is kind of a trend for me this week, but both Raheem Mostert and Devin Singletary, they both saw 3 or more targets last week, and both of their lines are fairly low over on DraftKings Sportsbook. So you look at Raheem Mostert, who actually had a pretty successful week last week out of the backfield. His line at about 7.5 currently over on DK. Devin Singletary 10.5. So I like both of those numbers. Devin Singletary, like I mentioned, 4 targets out of the backfield last week. If we're going to be expecting a lot of points and more of a track meet here, they might be looking to throw a bit more. Devin Singletary can definitely find himself involved in the passing game, and Raheem Mostert kind of essentially gained back a little bit more of that role in that Miami backfield that we kind of wanted him in the preseason to capture. And we saw him being mixed in passing game scripts there for Miami. So I like Raheem Mostert over 7.5 receiving yards as well.
So, Taylor, we got a little bit of news here in this Buffalo game as well that came out of practice here today. It does look like Gabriel Davis is going to be back and available to play for Buffalo, so that's going to be good for them. We don't know about Dawson Knox, though. Dawson Knox may not be here in this game. So, with that news, does that change anything you're looking at here in this Buffalo-Miami game?
I don't really think so. I'm very excited for this game. I think it's, two teams that are 2-0, and they both have extremely explosive offenses. Miami has the second ranked total offense, the Bills with the third, and both quarterbacks finding huge success here at the start of the season. Bills quarterback Josh Allen, the favorite right now to win the MVP. That's still at plus money, too, from a betting perspective. You could go put money on that. And Fins Tua Tagovailoa, first in total yardage in the league right now. If I'm picking an outright winner, I'm still picking for the scale to tip in favor of the Bills because of their second-ranked defense. Miami's offensive achievements have mainly come from their pair of the two fastest receivers in the league, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But the Dolphins haven't faced a defense like Buffalo yet. They're only allowing 149 passing yards. That's the second best in the league. With that being said, betting-wise, I think that the Bills' money line is too juicy at minus 250. Instead, I'll take a player prop on the Dolphin side. I'm going to go Waddle with an anytime TD. It's at plus 145 right now. He's already had 3 TDs this season, 2 last week on 19 targets. I think that if Hill is jammed up, Waddle's going to be the guy in the end zone. So I like that as my play for this game.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, listen, I'm just going to stick here with the nice and easy old school way to go and bet this game. I'm taking Buffalo Bills, and I am just laying the 5 points, and I have absolutely no problem doing that. This Buffalo team was my pick at the beginning of the year to win the Super Bowl. I think I got them at 7 plus 750, so 7.5 to 1. You can't find that number out there anymore. And if they beat Miami again here, that number is going to go even lower on the day. So I've been riding Buffalo since the beginning. I have a lot of faith in this Buffalo Bills team. Adam Pfeiffer is going to be very happy when he hears me say all that stuff. So this is a very good situation here, and I'm just going to keep riding it there. I like Buffalo minus 5.5. So, Kyle, we're going to move on and talk about another game that I know you were interested in here, and this is one that I think a lot of people are interested in. It's an NFC East battle between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Redskins in this one. Let's see. What do we got? Philly is a 6.5-point favorite. The total here is 47.5. What are you looking at here in this Philly-Washington game?
My first lean is the over in this game. We've seen the Eagles, not be shy of putting up points on the board, playing pretty fast. I think their offense is looking very good. I think this team in general is looking good. And the one thing that actually kind of, scares me away from being extremely heavy on the over is how elite this Philadelphia defense has looked so far. I do think they have some holes, but their secondary is looking pretty good. But, Washington, they've been more than capable of putting up points as well. So I think my first lean would be the over in this game. And also, you still have the Philadelphia Eagles inside that magic number of 7. So I wouldn't mind, taking the Eagles to cover as well. Again, I talked about the Bills shaping out to be one of the better teams in football. Unfortunately, I don't like to say it, but potentially even the Eagles are. I know Taylor's a Cowboys fan, so I know she's not going to like to hear that either. But they look really, really good to start the season. So I wouldn't mind laying the points there for the Eagles. But there's a prop bet that I do like as, my bronze play. So I'm actually going to save that one for later. I'll leave it as a little bit of a teaser there. But another pick that I'm going to take, if you can find it, depending on kind of where we're looking around here. Terry McLaurin, his receiving line is at 3.5. There's some sites where you can find a better number on DraftKings. I believe it was at 160 last night, which I don't love that juice there. But pulling up the prop shop right now, yeah, it looks like the best line is BetMGM minus 165. So I don't necessarily love that, but my model, that was the biggest edge in this game in terms of a prop bet. So probably stay away from most prop bets in this game other than the one that I'll bring up later for the bronze play. But again, I guess my initial lean would be the over in this game.
Yeah, just to add a little bit of intrigue to that bronze play there, it's also my gold play for this week. So that's definitely one you guys are going to want to stick around in here. But before that, Taylor, let's get to you on that Philly and Washington game. Anything that you're looking at there between the Eagles and I almost said the Redskins, the Eagles and the Commanders here on Sunday?
Well, I know Kyle's excited. As a Cowboys fan, I have no interest in this game whatsoever. Literally at all. So I'm doing my best here. I'm also staying away from player props as well, which is usually not my thing, but Carson Wentz facing the team that drafted him second overall for the first time ever in 2016. I'll take Wentz and the Commanders to keep it close in this one because it's a divisional game. Washington plus 6.5. The Eagles' run defense, I thought, was gassed at the beginning of week 1 against the Lions. I'm thinking maybe we'll see some similarities here. The Commanders can put up points, and they use more of a run. They'll take the pressure off of Wentz. So I'll take the Commanders at +6.5. But again, not a game I will be paying attention to in week 3.
Yeah, so my favorite play from this game is actually going to be Carson Wentz to throw an interception. He had 1 in week 1, he had 2 in week 2, and the thing is, he threw 40 passes in those games. And the way I'm looking at this game, I kind of agree with what Kyle was saying. I mean, a lot of people are expecting it to be an over, so if it's an over and that Philly offense looks really good so far. So if Philly's putting up points, Washington's going to have to throw to get in it. And I do like what Washington has been doing so far. I mean, I like the group of pass catchers that they have. Curtis Samuel has looked very good. The rookie Dotson has looked good. Logan Thomas, their tight end, is back. He looks good as well. So I do think they're going to find some success through the air. But again, if you're going to ask Carson Wentz to throw the ball 40 times, there's going to be one of those that doesn't go the way that it should for Carson Wentz. We've seen that happen quite a few times. And I mean, listen, like Kyle was saying before too, that Philly defense looked amazing, shutting down what I thought was going to be a very good Minnesota offense on Monday night. So I think this team does have some upside. I think Carson Wentz will throw. And the other thing I like in this game with Philly sitting at -6.5, I think this is a great teaser piece. I think Philly's going to win this game. You could tease this down from 6.5 to -0.5. You basically just need the Eagles to win by 1 point here. So that's the two ways that I'm looking at playing this Philly and Washington game here. Now, guys, we don't have a ton of time left in this first segment here. So what I want to do is kind of do like rapid fire. I'm going to go through some of the games that we didn't touch on. We'll save some of the other games that we have some of our, player prop, bronze, silver, and gold picks to talk about when we get there. But some of the games that none of us had a pick in, just kind of want to get your ideas. So keep it to like a sentence or two. We'll walk through them all here. First one, Detroit Lions against the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota is favored by 6. 52 is the total in this game. Taylor, anything you're looking at here with Detroit and Minnesota?
I'm banking on quarterback Kirk Cousins to have a good game in this one, despite how he played in Monday Night Football in primetime. If he has a good game, my favorite player prop here is going to be Detroit Lions quarterback Jared Goff over 36.5 passing attempts, because I think he's going to be playing catch up to the Vikings in this game.
So, Kyle, before I go to you, real quick update here. TJ Hawkinson is questionable for this game as well. I don't know if that changes much for you, but figured we throw it out there for the people. What are you looking at here in this Detroit-Minnesota game? I think you actually have a play in this game, so save that for when we get to the second segment. But kind of give your thoughts on it real quick.
Yeah, I do have my gold play come from this game, but I'll throw out a little a long shot here. That's going to be Jamal Williams to score the first touchdown, plus 1,300. This is a big number here, big line. But Jamal Williams actually leads the NFL in red zone opportunities. You can actually find his anytime touchdown score at plus 210 over on Caesars as well. But that first touchdown sprinkle there with DeAndre Swift potentially banged up a little bit. I do think that we see more Swift than we did last week, coming back from the ankle injury. But Jamal Williams is going to have a role whether Swift's healthy or not. And I think that to consider the fact that his red zone opportunities have been so high, I think first touchdown score has some nice value there.
Yeah, I like that too. I also like DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift anytime touchdown in this game is plus money, which doesn't make any sense to me. He could score through the air. He could score on the ground. This guy is very, very good football player. I'm just hoping he doesn't get tackled at the one. Although if he does, it could help Kyle out there with that Jamal Williams touchdown that he's helping. That's what happened in week 1 here. So the next one here, Kansas City and Indianapolis, another teaser piece that I like. Although it opened at 6.5, and I played it at 6.5 as part of a teaser, got it down to 0.5, just needed KC to win. The line has actually dropped on this game. It's down to -5, -5.5. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the wide receivers are going to be back in town for the Indianapolis Colts this week. Michael Pittman does look like he's ready to go. Alex Pierce passed concussion protocol today, so he should be back out there. Kind of stinks for Ashton Dulin, but it is what it is there. Taylor, we'll go to you first here. Kansas City, Indianapolis, what are you thinking?
Well, my gut has been screaming at me all week to take the Colts, even though they're 1-1. This team is too good. They have the best offensive line in the NFL, in my opinion. To not win a game here, it could be a get-right spot and an upset spot against the Chiefs, but I'll play it safe. I'm going to go with the player prop in this as well. We're going to go with the workhorse running back, Jonathan Taylor, over on his rushing total. I believe it's at 84.5 right now. I think that he's going to have a huge game this week, go over 100 yards. He's their biggest offensive weapon. They have to get him more involved. In week 2, he was only held to 54 yards against the Jags. So I think that Taylor goes over this number, 84.5, has a big game. He's one of the best running backs in the league. He's one of those guys that after contact, he creates more yardage. So I'm looking for him and the Colts to hopefully have a big game.
All right, and there you go. That's Taylor for the bet right there. So you got to be on top of that one anyway. One thing I do like about that Jonathan Taylor bet too is we had seen his number the first couple games in the 90s. So 84, when you said that number, I was like, oh, I didn't even see it was that low. Like that's a good 10, 12 yards below where we had seen it lately. So that's very interesting there too. I like that. Kyle, anything you're looking at here, Kansas City, Indy?
I like that Taylor call. My model has Jonathan Taylor go over 100 yards and actually lead the NFL this week in rushing yards. So I like that bet there. Speaking of rushing yards and another prop, I'm actually going to take Patrick Mahomes over 10.5 rushing yards over at BetMGM minus 120. This line actually opened up at 7.5 on DraftKings. So again, highly recommend keeping your eye on that FTN bet tracker. You can follow the FTN alerts Twitter page as well to stay up to date on that when those lines and those bets first get placed. Where like 7.5, 10.5, still a good number here because I have Mahomes rushing for 20 yards this week. He averages 18.5 on his career, but his season average is just over 2. So I do think that number is actually bringing some of these Vegas algorithms down on the prop here for Patrick Mahomes. And I think it got bet up from 7.5 to 10.5 because these bettors quickly realized that number was just too low. But I still think 10.5 might be a little bit too low as well. So Patrick Mahomes over 10.5 rushing yards.
All right, there you go. Patrick Mahomes rushing yards. I like that too. Speaking of quarterbacks that can run the ball, Baltimore against New England is the next game we have here. Really interesting number on this game because you can find New England +3 at some places out there in the market, and you could also find Baltimore at -2.5. So if you're on either side of this game, again, if you want to bet the Patriots, find that +3 somewhere out there and play that +3. If you want to bet the Ravens, take those 2.5s. This way, if they win by a field goal, you get the win there. Kyle, we'll start with you on this one. Baltimore, New England. Anything you like?
Yeah, definitely like Baltimore here. I think that New England definitely getting maybe a little bit too much respect in terms of where they are in the betting market right now. Obviously with where we are with Baltimore, their defense a little bit banged up. I do think that there's a chance that they get J.K. Dobbins back, at least in a limited fashion, which I think will help this offense in a big way. They have no help in the backfield outside of Lamar Jackson. The running backs have not looked good at all this season. So getting an elite runner like J.K. Dobbins will help this offense quite a bit. So I think Baltimore -2.5, like you mentioned, kind of like you mentioned, shop around, find the best line. That would be probably my go-to number there. I do think that we see a fairly low line on Mark Andrews, 57.5. This is one of the best receiving tight ends in all of football. So 57.5 is quite a low number there. I get the matchup is tough, but that would probably be my favorite prop bet from this game.
Yeah, Baltimore 2.5 is the way that I'm looking at this one too. Taylor, J.K. Dobbins is going to be back, although they did say he may be on a little bit of a pitch count. So we might not get full Dobbins here. We might only get half Dobbins or so. But Baltimore, New England, what are you looking at in that one?
I've rolled with the Ravens for the first 2 weeks on the spread. Unfortunately, lost by the hook last week. I'm rolling with them again in week 3. Hopefully, we're going to get a win this time. I'm going Ravens -2.5. You look at Lamar, he's faced the Patriots twice in his career. He's a running quarterback. He's rushed for over 115 yards against the Patriots. Head coach Bill Belichick hates running quarterbacks because he likes to play man-to-man defense. That's something you can't do as well when you face a quarterback that likes to use his legs. So I'm going to take the Ravens in this spot. Their secondary hasn't looked as good as I expected through the first 2 weeks. They were gassed last week against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The Patriots don't have weapons like that. So I'm going to lay the points here with the Ravens -2.5.
Yeah, the Patriots definitely do not have the wide receiver weapons that Miami does. That is a very big difference in positional between those two teams here. So we're going to go on. We're going to talk about some of our bronze, silver, and gold prop plays here. Taylor, I'm going to start with you. We're going to throw it back to you here. The first one that we have up here, your bronze play, Jimmy G in that San Francisco and Seattle game. What are you looking at here with Jimmy G?
Oh, yes. My bronze pick for week 3, 49ers, Broncos, and Sunday Night Football. I'm really excited about this game. The Niners headed to Mile High Stadium for the first time since 2014, so it's been a long time. But they do know their familiar foe of Denver's quarterback, Russell Wilson, fairly well. Line opened originally on this game at Niners 2.5-point dogs, but now with Jimmy G at the helm, the game is essentially at a pick-em. San Fran at -1.5 right now, last time I checked. Trey Lance's season ending with that horrible ankle injury in week 2 is absolutely devastating. I think it's time for Garoppolo to operate head coach Kyle Shanahan's offense the way he has, and he's had a lot of success over the years. So I'm going to take Garoppolo over 234.5 passing yards. Garoppolo's led San Fran to the NFC Championship game in 2 of his last 3 seasons. completing over 68% of his passes last season and led the league in yards per completion at 12.7. With Lance out and Garoppolo in, the Niners' run game, I think, is going to sit in the shadows. Lance was a QB that used his legs. Garoppolo relies on his arm more, so I'm going Garoppolo to pick apart this Denver defense and go over 234.5 passing yards for Jimmy G.
I like it. One of the things that I was talking about this week with the San Francisco 49ers, everybody was trying to make their updates to their power ratings with the difference between Trey Lance and Jimmy G. And a lot of people were using that as a downgrade. I actually upgraded the San Francisco 49ers in my power rankings with Jimmy G in there. Again, does he have the same kind of ceiling that Trey Lance has long-term? Maybe not, but right now I think he actually gives them a better chance to win games. And speaking of winning games, that's something that the Chicago Bears are going to need a lot of help to do. And that's going to be my bronze pick here today. I'm going to talk about Chicago Bears receiver Darnell Mooney. And I want to say right off the bat that I think Darnell Mooney is a very good receiver. So this is more of an indictment on the offensive line and the quarterback than it is on him here. But I'm going to go under 3.5 receptions here for Darnell Mooney. Oh, excuse me. And here's the reason why. So in week one, you could forgive the week one game with them only throwing the ball 17 times and Mooney only having, I think, like 2 or 3 targets come his way. There was rain in that game. There was high wind in that game. The running game for both teams was really the way both teams go. But there is absolutely no excuse for them not throwing the ball more than 11 times in that second game that they played against the Green Bay Packers. They were down 2 scores for a lot of that game, down 3 scores by the end of that game. To be down 3 scores towards the end of the game and still be running the football, I mean, it's basically an indictment on the quarterback and the offensive line that this team have here. They don't think that their offensive line can protect them. They don't think that Fields is going to be accurate enough to throw enough passes. Listen, Darnell Mooney has to get over 3.5 receptions in this game in order for this not to cash. Darnell Mooney has not even seen 3 targets in a game so far this year. For the Chicago Bears, I think the only chance that the Bears have to win this year, and I think the Bears know it too, is by keeping the ball on the ground and running the ball. I think there's going to be more than 11 pass attempts here, but I definitely don't think there's going to be a ton. I definitely don't think Darnell Mooney is going to have the kind of numbers that he put up last year. So my first pick here, my bronze pick, is going to be Darnell Mooney under 3.5 receptions for -115. And we're going to stay in this same game because, Kyle, I know your silver pick here is also on the Chicago Bears. So why don't you talk about that one a little?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of actually is a good kind of segue here because you mentioned the way that this Bears team kind of relies on some running back play. Obviously, David Montgomery has been the workhorse for this team over the past couple of years, and there's obviously some speculation that Khalil Herbert would get a little bit more worked into the game. But in terms of what we've seen so far this season, in the first 2 weeks, it's been the David Montgomery show. He played 80% of snaps last week, 73% of snaps the week before that in week 1, and he's been heavily involved in the passing game. He's seen 6 targets on the year, which might not seem like a lot because, again, you look at this Chicago team, they've thrown the ball 28 times total through 2 games. You can argue that 28 times is simply too low for 1 game, let alone 2 games, and I get it, the weather and week 1, but as Benny mentioned last week, it's just inexcusable, and it's not something that continue and be successful in the NFL in this day and age. You need to throw the ball to win, whether it be 25, 28 times, whatever it may be, but 11 times is not going to cut it. You look at Justin Fields' pass attempts lines on multiple sports books, it's in the mid-20s, 25, 26.5 is where you're going to find that number, and that's what should be expected. So when you take Dave Montgomery's current 21% target share and you extrapolate that out to a larger volume here for the passing offense, whether it just be 25 or 26 pass attempts, that's a massive upgrade compared to 11 last week. So when you're looking at here, those numbers there, I like Dave Montgomery over 2.5 catches, found this number over at plus money. Over on DraftKings, which is what a spot that I've been kind of I feel like all my picks this week have been over on DraftKings, but apparently DKs are giving me all their money this week, or I'm taking all their money. But plus 100 over 2.5 catches. Monty has 5 catches through his first 2 games, and while, like I mentioned, that doesn't seem overly impressive, the unsustainable rate that these Bears are throwing at, it's going to increase. It just has to naturally with the way that the NFL is shaping out these days. So that overall volume will go up, and I think that'll be a good opportunity for Dave Montgomery to see more work. And like Benny mentioned, this offensive line has not been able to hold up very well, so that's going to lead to some checkdowns here for Dave Montgomery in a matchup against Houston, who has not been very good against running backs either.
So Taylor, we're going to go back to you here, and I'm actually going to pretend that I don't hear what you're about to say here because, again, Benny and the Jets, everybody knows I'm a big Jet fan here. I'll probably be at the game on Sunday, but I can't really argue against your silver pick here because I kind of agree with you. I did bet against them last week, which turned out as disastrously as possible with that 1 in 2,200 and something game comeback that they had. But I know you do like the Bengals here. So what are you looking at here in this Bengals-Jets game?
Yeah, my silver pick is going to be Bengals Jets. Since he's 0-2 in their dynamic quarterback receiver connection in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, who made it to the Super Bowl last year, have been outfought by the Steelers' eventual QB2, Mitch Trubisky, and Dallas backup Cooper Rush, who has started 2 games in his entire career. I'm not counting out the Bengals just yet, though. I'm going to go Bengals -5.5. This is a buy low on Cincy because of their poor record and sell high on the Jets because of their wild last-minute victory against the Browns in Week 2. Jets head coach Robert Saleh is still just 6-12 against the spread as an underdog. Week 2 outcomes are giving us value on both sides of the line here. This is a get-right spot for Cincinnati, and they've covered in 16 of their last 17 wins. So I'm going to go Cincy -5.5 for my silver pick in Week 3.
Yeah, I was actually at the game last year when the Mike White game where they came back and wound up beating Cincinnati. Although I listened to it while I was stuck in traffic on Route 3 because it was 2 touchdowns and my son and I left early. So it happens sometimes. It is what it is. But I'm going to go into my silver pick now. And my silver pick is one that I think I kind of mentioned a little bit about it already. And it's going to be Davante Adams to score a touchdown. And this is one of the reasons why I think you guys should all be over at FTN Bets checking out the prop shop. So you go over to the prop shop, you type in Davante Adams' name for an anytime touchdown, and what you're going to see is FanDuel -145, DraftKings even money, Caesars for some reason has this at +121, which I thought was just way too good of a price for a guy who has scored a touchdown in each of the first 2 games that he's had this season. So there's going to be no Hunter Renfrow here this week. So that's another reason why I think Davante Adams has a chance to get himself into the end zone. +121. I just thought it was too good of a price over here. So I took Davante Adams to get in the end zone and score a touchdown. Yes, it's boring, but again, at +121, I will gladly take, 1.2 times my money and double it and put it back in so that I can play it on DFS over on DraftKings and lose it back to everybody next week. So everybody enjoy it when it comes in that way. So let's see. Next one we got up, Kyle, we're going to go to you for your gold pick here, and that's in the Detroit-Minnesota game. So what do you like there?
Yeah, so I think that this might be one of the more impressive game environments from a track meet potential standpoint. Obviously, Detroit's been playing very fast this season. They're number 1 in neutral and adjusted pace on the season. Minnesota right around league average, but I think that's going to help them here, and that's going to propel me to be interested in Justin Jefferson over 7.5 catches here. Once again, plus money on a bet that I really like, +105, and again, over on DraftKings. But Justin Jefferson has a 31% target share so far this season. And honestly, when you look at the games and how they kind of shook out, it feels like that 31% number is actually fairly unimpressive considering the fact that in the second half of week 1, Jefferson was fairly uninvolved. They turned to a run-first approach in the second half when they had a significant lead over Green Bay in week 1, and then obviously late in the game last week against the Eagles, it was pretty much out of reach. They weren't really doing a whole lot. We saw Adam Thielen, Irv Smith get a lot of check down, garbage time type pass attempts. So Justin Jefferson, 11+ targets in each of the first 2 games of the season. It would be a crime if this guy doesn't see double-digit targets every single week. He gets a good matchup here against Detroit and what should be one that is going up and down all game long. Justin Jefferson over 7.5 catches, +105. Definitely my favorite prop play of the week, and that's why it's my gold pick.
Yeah, and you know what? There's no Darius Slay on the Detroit Lions anymore, so
Yeah.
he doesn't have to worry about seeing that guy 2 weeks in a row. NFC Player of the Week, Defensive Player of the Week, Darius Slay had an absolute monster game on Monday Night Football, so shout out to him. Taylor, speaking of shout outs, we're coming back to you right now with a rookie from the West Coast who comes all the way over to the East Coast as your favorite play in this Atlanta and Seattle game. So what are you looking at here?
My gold pick, my favorite pick of the week, is kind of in a garbage game, Falcons Seahawks. One thing that's interesting storyline, though, both Atlanta's quarterback, Marcus Mariota, and Seattle's Geno Smith have been living similar tales. They're being pushed to a backup QB position. Now they're thrust into a starter role until their team essentially drafts somebody who's younger and better than them to take over. With this contest being so close, I'm going to grab a prop, Atlanta's wide receiver rookie Drake London over 54.5 receiving yards. That's minus 115. If you want to play it safer, you can eat more juice and take London over 4.5 receptions. That's at minus 155. Mariota's favorite target so far is London. London went over 54.5 receiving in both games this season with nearly 10 targets in each game. London's proving why the Falcons drafted him 8th overall this year. He's the key to their offense. When opponents are always building their game plans around how to stop Atlanta's tight end Kyle Pitts, this is where you're going to see London getting more favorable looks. So I'm going to go with London over 54.5 receiving yards in the Falcons Seahawks game.
I like that. And, you mentioned Kyle Pitts here, and that's got to be one of the biggest disappointments so far early on in the year. I think there's a squeaky wheel game coming up for him where they're going to make sure that they get this guy the ball at some point here. They have to get him going if they're going to want to. But again, it's very nice that they do have a guy like Drake London on the other side there because you know what? You have two wide receivers or two pass catchers out there that team's got a scheme for. This team does have a lot of upside in the future. They do have some really good young pass catchers here. Whether it's Mariota under center or whether they wind up, with Desmond Ridder at some point this year, we'll see how that all works out, whether he's the answer or not. But I do think the future is bright for the Atlanta Falcons here. So we're going to move on to the last pick here, which is my gold pick. Also happens to be Kyle's bronze pick, which only makes me feel better about it being my gold pick that we're both on it right here. So Kyle, I'll let you kind of break this one down. It's going to be Philadelphia Eagles starting running back, one of three that they use, Miles Sanders. What are you looking at here with Sanders?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the one of three that they've actually used because that was a big concern for Miles Sanders, and I think that is still a concern for some potential line makers out here on these prop market streets. But in terms of what we've seen from Miles Sanders, he is the guy amongst the running backs. Yes, he's going to have to deal with sharing carries and rush attempts with Jalen Hurts. That is never not going to be an issue. But in terms of him against those other two running backs in the backfield, 67% of running back carries have gone Miles Sanders' way, 13 plus attempts in each of the first 2 weeks, 18 last week in that Monday night performance. We've seen a lot of efficient success from Miles Sanders, not only this year, but pretty much anytime he's been given the ball. Jalen Hurts being a mobile quarterback is going to always help whatever running back is in the backfield, open up those running lanes and open up that efficiency opportunity there for running backs. But Miles Sanders in the backfield here, I do really like this week. I think that the volume will be there in a spot where they're favorited. I think that they do win here. And in terms of where we're looking at matchup-wise, this Washington team has been brutal against the run so far this season. Yes, we're only 2 games in, so it is important to note when you're talking sample size. But so far this season, which is all we can work on, 31st in rush DVOA, 32nd dead last in yards allowed per carry. So really like this spot here for Sanders. I like the role that he's carved out for himself in this offense. And again, I think this is going to be a good game environment for the run for Miles Sanders here in the spot.
Just to kind of build on some of the stats that Kyle was throwing out there as well. I think my mic was on mute when I started talking there. 52% of the snaps is what Miles Sanders has seen, but it's been most of the running snaps, right? Like they've been using Gainwell as the guy who's in like the hurry up offense. And, when it's an obvious passing down. And then Boston Scott is really just a change of pace guy that they throw in every once in a while, maybe after Sanders had a bunch of carries or something like that. He's really just going to be somebody who takes a couple carries here or there. He's going to be more of a thorn in the side. But again, like Kyle said, it might be one of the things that is keeping these prop numbers down. And you did have 80 and 90-something yards rushing for Sanders in the first 2 games. Jacksonville ran for 123 against Washington. Detroit ran for 191 against them in week 2. So again, building on those numbers, just a lot of things are pointing to this being a game where Miles Sanders could get a lot of yards on the ground, and that could be the way that we do it here. Now, we do have some questions from some of our subs, so we're going to throw them out there. If either one of you guys want to take it, if either one of you have anything that you're looking at here, any Rodgers bet that we could take advantage of. I'm assuming they're talking Aaron Rodgers here. I got to be honest, for me, going up against that Tampa Bay defense, not really a time I want to be heavy on Aaron Rodgers numbers. But do either of you have anything you're looking at in this game?
Well, I actually did take the Aaron Rodgers over on his passing yards early in the week before I saw, like I mentioned, every single wide receiver have some sort of injury. But it's a very low number for Aaron Rodgers, only 234.5. I mean, this is not the back-to-back MVP type numbers and respect that we're seeing from the lines makers here. We're seeing him around the same total as, a little bit over someone like Ryan Tannehill, who's, going to be around 215 most weeks. Like, it's a very low number. So I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of it, but I am a little bit uneasy now due to all these injuries and whatnot that the Green Bay receivers are dealing with. But in that game, again, I do want to stress this. Make sure you're looking at the lines when they resurface. Obviously, a lot of them are pulled down right now with the injury stuff. But if Romeo Doubs pops up on these lines and he has a low number, I haven't ran the projections on it yet, but in terms of what we're expecting from Doubs, not only did he get hyped up this week as someone who needs to be more involved, but now with Sammy Watkins out and the rest of the wide receivers banged up, he's a guy that I'm definitely keeping my eye on in a big way in this game.
Taylor, anything for you here? I saw you shaking your head, so I think you're staying away from Rodgers as well, right?
I'm staying away from Rodgers. Like I said before, one of my other picks I gave out, Leonard Fournette, running back for the Bucs, over on his rushing total, is the only thing I'm going to touch in this game. Other than that, I'm staying away from it.
All right, so we have one final question we're going to take here before we go, and it's an interesting one here. It says, Taylor, hot take upset of the week, Indianapolis over KC, although it's not really a hot take because their backs are against the wall, and if they have any prayer of making the playoffs, they're going to have to win this game. Starting off 0-3 is not going to be something they do, but they don't care about that game. What they want to know is, how high are you guys on the Giants upsetting the Cowboys? Anyone pick Giants out of you three folks? Listen. Giants upsetting the Cowboys without Dak Prescott? Kyle, I know what Taylor's going to say here, but would that even be an upset? Like, how are you looking at it here?
I mean, they're the favorites right now over on DraftKings. They're -1, so I don't know if I would call them upsets. I mean, if I had to pick, I guess I would take the Giants in this spot, but I don't feel great about it. And Dallas is, their defense is going to keep them in games, and I still think that they're going to have the ability to run the ball and maybe even run the ball a bit better if Tony Pollard gets mixed in more. He's looked pretty good so far this season, but I don't. It's probably a game I'm staying away from for the most part. It'll probably be one of those games I just enjoy because it's on Monday night and. Probably, who am I kidding? I'll end up putting some money somewhere in that game, but probably not on the winner.
All right, so Taylor, I let Kyle go first. Now tell him why he's wrong. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I stay away from betting my teams because I don't want to ever be biased, but come on. The point that the Giants are even favored, the only reason they're favored is because Dak Prescott is not playing. That is it. I don't care that they're 2-0. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I think the Cowboys end up upsetting the Giants, I guess, technically, if we're talking here. But I don't think it's much of an upset whatsoever at all. I mean, Micah Parsons is going to be the best player on the field there. He plays for the Cowboys. He does not play for the Giants. Mm-hmm. The Giants, I'm sorry. I know it's exciting for people if you're a New York Giants fan that you're 2-0, but I mean, it doesn't mean much. That's all. That's my take there. I'm definitely taking the Cowboys over the Giants in Monday Night Football.
Yeah, Micah Parsons was banged up a little bit this week, which is very concerning to me because I am sitting on a double-digit odd number for him to be the defensive player of the year. And so far, I'm feeling really good about that ticket at the beginning of the season here. But we have reached the end of our time here on the Game Plus Network, so we're going to be signing off there. We'll hang out for a few more minutes over on YouTube to answer some questions. But for everybody on Game Plus, this has been the NFL Betting Show here at FTN Bets. For Taylor, for Kyle, for myself, Benny, good luck this week, everybody. And for the rest of you who are not watching us on Game Plus now, we still have a couple games that we can do real quick here. I want to go rapid fire because we missed, but there were 3 games we didn't have a chance to talk about here. So let me throw them out there real quick. Get your opinion on this, guys, and then we'll sign off here. New Orleans Saints, Carolina Panthers, Saints -2.5. Jameis not 100%, but he is going to be playing. He is available here. Either one of you have anything that you like for New Orleans, Carolina?
I particularly think this game, there's a lot of games in week 3 that I'm looking at that are just kind of blah games to me. This is one of those games. I think I'm going to lay the points here with New Orleans -3 if I'm going to take anything. Carolina does not look good, and I don't think they're going to get any better. I think they lose 10 straight here for the longest active running losing streak that exists. I think that New Orleans and Jameis Winston will be fine regardless of the fact that he's a little bit banged up this week. I think they will take care of business and their defense will pretty much lead the way against Carolina.
Kyle, anything for you on this one?
The only real bet that I have interest in, and I did take this one again, put it in the bet tracker. I think it was last night, and that's going to be Christian McCaffrey over 57.5 rushing yards. This game, actually, my model projects as the fastest game of the week with the way that both teams have played so far this season. And again, 2-game sample. I don't want to necessarily live and die by those numbers, but it is what we have to work with right now. So I do like that number for Christian McCaffrey. 57.5 is where I found it, but I just looked up the prop shop. You can actually find it at 56.5, minus 114 over on FanDuel, and PointsBet even has it at 55.5, minus 125. I think McCaffrey is simply too good to be contained, even in what is probably going to be a tough matchup by the end of the year, the Saints against the run. So McCaffrey over 55, 56, or 57.5, wherever you find it, I like him over all of those numbers.
Yeah, one thing that I did play in this game, I like the Alvin Kamara anytime touchdown at plus 120. Kamara is going to be back in here, and really it just comes down to price, right? Like plus 120 for Alvin Kamara is just too high. Like you look at some of the other stud running backs, minus 130, minus 140, minus 150, even minus 120 would probably be where I think fair value would be here, because they do have some other running backs that they switch in there, and maybe they go with a Taysom Hill down there by the goal line or something. New Orleans has done that in the past, but plus 120 on a guy as good as Alvin Kamara for an anytime touchdown. Again, I understand they don't throw it to him as much with Jameis as they, used to with some of the other quarterbacks in there. But with that being said, I just still think that number's too high. So I don't hate sprinkling a little money on anytime touchdown, Alvin Kamara plus 120. And that brings us to the one game that we have not talked about here. And I got to be honest, guys, I am not really sure what to do with this game. I think the Chargers should win this game against Jacksonville. I think the Chargers -7 was about where I expected the line to be with a healthy Justin Herbert. The line is down to -5. And what that kind of says to me is maybe we're giving Justin Herbert a little too much credit that he's going to be okay to play. I mean, again, if you watch that last game, like, he threw that touchdown pass with one arm hanging, and the pass right before it was an absolute duck, which is not something we normally see. I can't imagine this guy is 100% here. I don't know. I think there's a chance that he might not even play, in which case I don't think -5 is enough points. I don't think +5 is anywhere near enough. If Chase Daniels is the quarterback, I think that line should have dropped all the way down to like maybe -2.5 or -3 if Justin Herbert can't go. But again, looking at the way the movement is, I'm not really sure what to do with this game. I'm lost. So somebody help me out. Kyle, you want to start? Like, help me out here. What do you got here?
Well, it seems like Taylor has a pick in mind. So if you have one,
all right, go ahead, Taylor.
Have at it.
I do. I'm like, this is my upset game. I was like, we didn't talk about it yet. I have been saying all week, gut feeling. I'm really not going to go off statistics and numbers here on this one. I just think that the Jags are going to upset Justin Herbert and the Chargers if he even plays. And now what we're seeing with this line movement, it's moving more in that favor. I think you look at both of these teams, they went out in the offseason. I say these two teams improved their defenses the most, went out and spent the most money to improve these defenses. I think that people are missing out on the Jags here for some reason. It's just like a gut feeling that I have that I'm going to take the Jags on the money line this week against the Chargers.
Yeah, like I said, I don't hate it. And you know what? I don't know if they'll beat Justin Herbert in the Chargers, but I know they'll beat Chase Daniels in the Chargers if that's the way it ends up, which honestly at this point is a coin flip which way we're going to see. So Kyle, anything you want to add here before we sign off?
I mean, if I had to guess, I would assume that books are expecting Herbert to sit. We saw a 6-point drop in the total from 48 to 42. Benny mentioned 5 as the line. I'm actually seeing on DraftKings -3 for the Chargers. So I think +5. I mean, +5 on the Jags, I would definitely have appeal on, especially if Herbert's going to be out. I think if you wanted to maybe wait and see that get some more solidified news on that, I think that would probably be the way. But if Herbert is out, I am with you guys 100%. Even if he is playing banged up in this, I guess I want to see where the line actually shakes out. Because if Herbert, we get news that he's playing and that line goes back up to 48, I really like the under in this one. Like Taylor mentioned, 2 teams that went out and spent money on their defenses, 2 teams that want to have good defensive teams. And if Herbert's going to be playing banged up, that's where I would assume the books are hoping a lot of those points come from if people are betting the over there. So I'll take the under on 48 or +5 on the Jags if Herbert is out.
Yeah, so just to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown here of what I was looking at with the power ratings, I had, if Justin Herbert didn't play, I had this game down to 2.5. So if you're seeing -3 on DraftKings, maybe there's some news that came out that we haven't seen, or maybe DraftKings just doesn't think this guy is going to be able to go after watching what he did last Thursday. So that's what that number, when you see a move in a number like that, -7 to -3 is a massive move to have. When you see -7 go to -3, 99.99% of the time, it's because there's something that happened with one of the stars. And for a 4-point move, it's very likely a quarterback. So I think there's going to be news, or there may have been news that came out while we were on the show about Justin Herbert if the line moved that much there. So anyway, that is going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for hanging out here with me. This is Benny Ricciardi filling in for Chris Meany. That is Kyle Murray filling in for, I guess we could say filling in for Mike Randall. And Taylor Mathis, who's here every week because she has to be here every week so she doesn't get fined. So there you go. So for Taylor, for Kyle, for me, shout out to our guy Quan, who is producing the show here today as well. Remember, you guys can get over to FTN Bets, FTN Daily, or FTN Fantasy. Use promo code. What do we got out there right now? FTN20, I think that one works. So use promo code FTN20. Can save 20% off on any of those packages, whether you're looking to get fantasy information, betting information, or daily fantasy information. All the stats, all the charts, all the graphs, all the expert picks by people like Taylor and Kyle. And all right, you could throw me in there as well for myself. So for Kyle, for Taylor, for Benny, signing off for the NFL betting show here at FTN Bets. Good luck this week, everybody.
Wow.